All right, what we're looking at is the very first commercial building that I ever bought, held for 2 years, and sold. So we paid $1.3 million for this building back about 2 years ago, which would have been 2019, I believe. And it's a 15,000 square foot light industrial building. At the time it had 5 units, I think. And then there's an office back there with another 2,500 square feet. So the previous owner had actually inherited the building as a result of some bad debt. And so it was very, very poorly managed the entire time. So this first suite here went and included that door. And then the next 3 doors were a transmission shop. And then after that, there was 2 more units at the end, and then that one that you see way down there. And the really janky thing about it was that the transmission shop had to go down way over behind this unit to get to the bathroom. And then, like, it was just the most bizarre layout you've ever seen. It was really poorly maintained. So what we did was we then created a new unit here by adding obviously a wall and adding a bathroom. And then with the 2 units, the 2 doors rather, that go with this unit, we added another bathroom here. And then the next 2 had, but the remainder of them had bathrooms. One of the challenging things was that in addition to the building being laid out really, really weird, all of the tenants were on month-to-month leases that were way under market. And so when we bought the building, we thought that everyone would simply be okay with our increasing their rent. And we were wrong. One of the things that surprised the hell out of us is everybody moved out. They'd been here for a very, very long time, and they'd been getting these super sweet deals on rent for a long time. And we just assumed, like, who would want to move? And so when we raised their rent, everybody got super pissed off, and every single tenant in the building turned over, which basically meant for us that it took about 2 years of fixing all of the problems that the building had. And oh man, there were many problems, in order to get it to the point where it was worth substantially more and sellable. Some of the problems that we had, in addition to what I've described already, the inspection, for example, did not catch that the electrical in the ceiling was not up to code. The fire suppression system, which is an air pressure system, there was all sorts of problems with the pump, all sorts of problems with leaky pipes. It's actually up in the unit way at the end of the building, and so it made a lot of noise. But when we first occupied that suite, when we first bought the building, and then when we moved out of that suite and then we moved upstairs there, of course, then we had to, enclose that room and enclose the pump and do all sorts of work. So it was a gong show, to say the least. And then the unit on the very end, which is behind me here, this one, the 2 doors there, it's the only unit in the building that doesn't have an office that has a window. So that, and it was used, the seller, who was a real jerk, occupied that space for a very, very long time, and it was we actually had to sue him to get him out. And so when that space came onto the market, it was quite difficult to rent, because a lot of people want to have an office with a window, much like you see behind me here. So that was also something that we really didn't anticipate. So that space was vacant for quite a long time. And then because of the parking, there's very limited parking here as well. There's only 22 spots. And now there's, granted, lots of street parking, but people don't want street parking. So right now, the new owners are assuming they're going to easily be able to rent out the office upstairs, which I think they're going to be surprised that it will be virtually impossible for them to rent because of the parking issue. So we learned a great deal by making this first investment. Now, the good news is We sold it for $2 million, all cash. Took a week to sell. We're obviously in a pretty hot market here in 2021. And we put about $135,000 or $140,000 into repairs and improvements in the building. So if you do the math on that, it was a very, very profitable 2-year flip for us. Initially, we were going to do this as a buy and hold, but the ROI just really wasn't going to be there. We've found ways that we can better deploy the capital. So that was one of the reasons that we sold the building. But nonetheless, it was a phenomenal learning experience, and to be able to do so well financially and get all of that education over a 2-year period was obviously very, very rewarding experience, and super thankful rather that we did it. So we're gonna just check out the upstairs office that I was just talking about. So this was the dingiest, almost like a hoarder-like office. There was some guys up here that were musicians, and they made movies, or they did soundtracks for movies. We're actually just now getting ready to move out, so things are in a little bit of disarray. Most everybody's moved out. But we put about $10,000 or $11,000 into paint and carpets up here, thinking that, hey, we'd be able to rent this out. And the reason we moved into it ourselves was we were not able to rent it out. Nobody wanted it because of the fact that there's no parking. So I guess the ideal tenant would be somebody that was going to use the big 4,000 square foot warehouse space downstairs, and they also needed an office for their staff. But again, that parking issue becomes a real serious issue in that situation, because if you've got a bunch of staff that would fill 2,500 square feet, which is what this office is, where are they going to park their cars? So again, pretty amazing learning experience, and this is where I run my show, which I'm going to be moving this into one of those backyard office sheds at the new house that we've purchased. But so yeah, it was like I say, pretty darn awesome experience, and really thankful that we had the opportunity to get it. All right, before we wrap up the video, I realized I probably should share the numbers, the before and after numbers with you guys. So at $1.3 million, that equated to buying the building at $72 a square foot. At the time, the cap, we bought it at about a 7.5 cap. The rent net of expenses was just about $100,000 a year. Now, when we sold the building, we had increased base rent to $128,000, and we had introduced triple net. There was no triple net before. They were just basic month-to-month rent. So we had annual triple net of $30,111 for an EGR of $158,000. Operating expenses were about $30,000. Vacancy allowance of 5% of about $8,000 equals an NOI of $120,000. We sold the building for $2 million, which was a cap rate of 6%. So from a both increase in rent and increase in market value, it was a very, very good deal for us. As I mentioned, if we had continued to own the building and manage it ourselves, we were going to make about $2,000 a month in positive cash flow. However, we decided there's better opportunities for us to invest our money in, and knowing that the upstairs office that I'm sitting in was unlikely to ever be rented, we thought that there was, again, just better places to put our money.